Let's talk about some trades that we want to make right now. Nate, let's start with your trade scenario first. What is the trade scenario that you selected?
All right, so I selected elite player buy. And basically, I wanted to find a top 5 wide receiver who I could go acquire. We know studs really help us out. Obviously, the more studs you got in your lineup, the better you're going to do. And, getting one of those guys not only just helps your lineup out, but it'd be like we talked about in the last podcast, cornerstone players you build your team around. The more you have of those, the more you just are better off year in and year out. And one guy I really like, and I think is actually somewhat accessible right now, is CD Lamb. I look, cooling on Dak Prescott right now. Not super excited about maybe the Cowboys offense this year. CD Lamb, we know he's a top wide receiver, a top young wide receiver, but he's not quite in that Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase tier. That's fine. It's very hard to be in that tier. So he's currently going at, wide receiver 4 right now and keep trade cut. But he's an accessible wide receiver 4, and I like that. So here's a trade I came up with. Tony Pollard and Christian Watson for CD Lamb. You're making this work for somebody else. Somebody else, obviously, they have maybe some wide receiver depth, or maybe they're okay with the tier down to Watson to pick up Pollard because they could use some running back help. And you're just solidifying yourself with a stud wide receiver you can build around. This is a move I would make in a rebuilding team. This is a move I would make in a competing team if I have the running back depth to get rid of Tony Pollard. We talked about in the last podcast, I'm not a huge Tony Pollard fan. We talked about the age. We talked about things like that. I think he's just a good sell right now. That's why I used him in this trade, because he is valued so highly. He's valued right over top of Austin Eckler, who has just been incredible for fantasy football over the past 2 years. And Tony Pollard's on a 1-year deal, so I don't know what's going on after this year. So I'll take CeeDee Lamb. I know what I'm getting with him for a long time. Another trade I came up with, maybe we don't have, there's 2 top players we want to trade for CeeDee Lamb. So Tony Pollard, a first-round pick, and Elijah Moore. Because if we're trading away, if that person's trading away CeeDee Lamb, they probably want a wide receiver back. We'll give them Elijah Moore. At least they get something. But I'm assuming they're doing this deal once again to get, a top running back, get that first on top of it, get some wide receiver help there for the depth. I think Lamb is just an accessible top 5 wide receiver. We love to build around wide receivers around here. Throw some trades out there for CeeDee Lamb. I think it'd be worth your money.
So what you're saying here is, in the second trade, you're equating, Pollard is Pollard. Obviously, their value lines up. So you're equating the first and Elijah Moore equals Christian Watson, essentially, right?
Essentially, yeah. Because, Christian Watson, young, very exciting wide receiver. I have some worries about his production just because Jordan Love's a new quarterback to the NFL.
It's true.
Jordan Love also has a lot of weapons. A lot of help was acquired for Jordan Love. A lot of help. Plus, Dobbs is having a comeback, apparently. So there's just a lot of mouths to feed there.
CeeDee Lamb, he is only 24 years old. Hasn't missed a game in his NFL career, which is hard in today's NFL. And look, Dak knows how to get it to him. 260 receptions over 3 seasons. I'm on board with either trade. Chev, yay or nay?
Yeah, he's just a great wide receiver that's young. He gets all the production in that offense. It's an easy buy for CeeDee Lamb at this point. If you can find a way to get him, it's an easy win for you.
All right, Chev, let's go to what is your trade scenario that you came up with?
Yeah, and my trade scenario is going to be QB, tight end, trade target, or sell. The guy that I really love to go get is Pat Freiermuth at this point. He's an incredible wide receiver. Yeah, kind of like a wide receiver. No, he's a tight end, but he's a guy that I think has top 5 potential. I think if he could have got some more touchdowns last year, I think he could have got there. And, it's year 3 for him. Year 3 is where we see tight ends shine. I think he can even have such a better year this upcoming year. He saw 98 targets last season. He was top 5 in the tight ends in targets, top 6 in reception and receiving yards. I think he has room to progress in TDs. He only had 2, but I think that changes this upcoming year. I think that offense is just a little bit more dynamic with Kenny Pickett being in year 2 as well. A lot of young guys. We have Deontay Johnson out there as well. I think there's going to be a lot of coverage going to those guys, and I think our boy Pat Freiermuth might be getting forgotten about. And he's consistent. He plays 16 games the last 2 seasons. I want a guy that's out on the field. I want a guy that's top 5 in targets at tight end, and we have that here. He's going for a mid to late second at this point. I came up with the trade Pat Freiermuth for Chig Okonkwo in the 3rd. I love being able to get that consistent player, trading Chig away in an offense that, they're not as pass happy as some other teams. You add DeAndre Hopkins there. Do I think Chig will be good? Yes. Do I think he could get to the top 5? I don't think so. I think Pat Freiermuth, though, has that opportunity to get there. I don't know if he makes it to the top 5 this year, but I like the transition of him going throughout the years. I mean, he's only 24 years old. I think the sky's the limit for him at the tight end position.
I love this. This is great. I'm all on board. I mean, if I could get him for a mid to late second, I feel like it might have to be mid to early second. Just people are pretty high on Freiermuth. And to be honest with you, I'll pay that. And look, I understand I talk about tight ends a lot, but there's a competitive advantage here. People devalue this position and then they go off and then they overpay. So get these guys when they're cheap, when you could still afford them. I feel like with Kenny Pickett coming in, growing in that offense, hopefully they get a new offensive coordinator soon. Maybe Matt Canada turns around. I don't know. I'm all on board. Nate, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think we're seeing a renaissance of the tight end position, Mike. So congratulations. I know you're excited about that.
So you're saying I'm a trailblazer.
You're a trailblazer, man. I think this is the year to go start acquiring your tight ends, because we've always said if you're not a top 5 tight end, doesn't matter. There's just like 30 guys after that all can be your weekly play. With all the tight end talent coming into the league, I think that's going to change, where we actually have a top 12 we're excited about. Those top 3 guys are still going to be ahead above all of those other guys, but I think there's going to be a clear top 12 with the talent that's coming in.
Yeah.
I think Pat Freiermuth is very much in the middle of that. I think he's going to be sitting there around tight end 6 to 8, and with some touchdown luck, could get into that top 5 of tight ends, because this is a guy that, kind of has been like the second target on his offense at times. 60 receptions so far in each of his first 2 seasons. Only the second tight end in NFL history to have 60 receptions in each of the first 2 seasons. Anyone know the other tight end? Anybody?
Kellen Winslow.
Nope. Keith Jackson.
Oh.
All right.
And no one has ever done it 3 seasons in a row. I think Pat Freiermuth is going to get 60 receptions this year. That would be historical.
I'm tearing down. Here's the trade that I constructed using DLF Trade Analyzer value. Somebody asked in the comments. I use DLF's Trade Analyzer. There's a website that's also free, I believe, called DLF is not free, so you know. So Travis Etienne, I'm moving off of him. His value is 401.5. I'm also adding a 24 third. The total on that trade is 448.3 for that side. I'm sorry. For Miles Sanders and DJ Moore. So that total value is 463.0. Or there's another one. ETN and a 24 fourth. That value is 414.4 for Miles Sanders and Brandon Ayuk, 425.1. Pick your poison, gentlemen. Nate, you might go the Ayuk side. Chev, you might go the DJ Moore side. See, look at that. I pleased everybody in the room. I got Miles Sanders. So look, why am I coming up with this trade? I think most of the Rewind crew is trying to move off of ETN this offseason due to Tank, Nate being there. Doug Peterson likes to rotate his backs. I still think he's going to have a productive enough season. So here's the thing. I'm moving a player that when you're selling this guy, yes, you're tearing down to a productive player, but you're still not ripping off your league mate. Like, look, you're going to get a productive player here. Okay. He's got some decent receiving upside too. Travis Etienne does 35 catches for 316 yards, no touchdowns, but whatever. Sanders has less competition in Carolina. Chuba Hubbard. You got Raheem Blackshear there. Cameron Peoples from Appalachian State. If you like a guy who's really big and stands up straight when he runs, he is there. And, look, the Ayuk trade, if you prefer Brandon Ayuk over DJ Moore, their value is close. You guys probably don't agree because you never like to agree with me. That's fine. Guys, go ahead, agree or disagree.
I'm good with this. I'm good with tearing down from ETN. It's nothing specifically against ETN. I think he's talented. I think he'll have good production this year, like you said. But I think with Tank being there, his volume and production is going to be capped at some point because Tank's going to get his opportunity. And Doug Peterson even said that Tank's role is going to grow throughout the season. So even if ETN starts out the season strong, when he gets to your fantasy playoffs, he's going to probably be in a pretty solid timeshare with Tank Bigsby because the talent's there. We've seen it already in the preseason through training camp. Lots of rave reviews. I know I'm a little biased, but it's validating for sure. But ETN, I'm okay with moving off him. I like moving off him for Sanders plus a wide receiver I can put right into my starting lineup. Exactly. This is a trade that helps my team out, Mike. I like it.
Yeah, I like the trades. I think it's fair. I think it's a trade. We know ETN's going to have a good season. I feel like we know he's going to be productive. But if you can move off of him and get Miles Sanders and DJ Moore, who I think is going to have a big year, Miles Sanders, who I think is going to have another big year. I think they picked him up for a reason to use him in the backfield to run and catch passes for Bryce Young. I like that deal. I like it. I think Travis Etienne, I think he's just going to be a little troubled by Tank a good amount, enough to just sway him just a little bit this upcoming year.
Nate, let's go to your next trade scenario. What did you pick?
Yep, I picked tier down trade target. I don't even consider this a tier down, but apparently it is, so we're going to go with it. I'm tearing down from George Pickens. I love the talent. He was one of my top wide receivers coming out of the draft. When he came out, I love George Pickens, but he doesn't separate very well. We all know that. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't really matter because he just catches everything that goes his way, and that's great. But Deontay Johnson does separate really well. He's always open, and he consistently gets 140 targets just about every single season. I mean, this guy's a target hog, and we've always talked about it. Volume is where it is in fantasy football. George Pickens, I think he's going to have a lot of highlight plays. He's going to have some fun plays. He's going to be a really good NFL wide receiver. But I'm starting to doubt if George Pickens is going to be, a top wide receiver for fantasy football just because of how he's going to be used in the Steelers offense, which also at the same time is not a super high-powered offense. Mm-hmm. And Pat Freiermuth is going to get his. Deontay Johnson is going to get his. Najee Harris is going to get his. Some people are calling for Jaylen Warren to get his. George Pickens, they can't all get a ton of volume, especially unless, if Kenny Pickett looks anything like he did last year, these guys aren't all going to be top 20, at their position and things like that. So moving off of George Pickens, who I think is just more of a boom or bust play on a week-to-week basis, I want Deontay Johnson, who's going to give me consistent points, has a lot more upside this year because he's just got to start scoring some touchdowns, and we'd be seeing lots more points from Deontay Johnson. I mean, if Deontay can get 6 touchdowns this year, I think he'd be a top 15 wide receiver in fantasy football. And I'll take that over George Pickens, who, unless he comes out and absolutely, puts the world on fire, I think it's probably going to be more of a wide receiver 30 to 40, with some weeks where he has some big weeks, with those touchdowns. But I just think on a consistent basis, give me Deontay. And in this trade down, I can trade George Pickens for Deontay. I can gain a third. Maybe I can get a throw-in player that I want. I can definitely get something on top of Deontay just because, hey, George is the new fresh flavor. People love what's new. They love the new shiny thing. George Pickens is very shiny. But Deontay, he's old reliable. And I'll take that on my team.
Yeah, I love this. People are really sleeping on Deontay Johnson because of the touchdowns and whatever. I love this. I love where your head is at. I'm all about this. If I could get Deontay and a pick on top of it, sign me up. Chev, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't have much to say. Deontay in the late 24 second, I feel is a great value. I don't even hate George Pickens. I think he's going to be a great player. I just don't know how consistent of his weeks are going to be where he just adds it all together. I think it's going to be sporadic throughout the season, which isn't a bad thing. It's just, it's hard to add him into your lineups knowing that he could have a week where it's 2 points or 5 points, or there's another week where he has 25, 30 points because he had a massive touchdown. So I like the tear down here, or tear down. Sorry.
Well, hey,
tear it down too.
You can tear it down too if you want to think about it that way. I mean, there are people that, Nate makes a really good point. They want that new good stuff, and I get it. You want the shiny new toy, but sometimes it's all about give me reliability, give me consistency, and give me more Kenny Pickett on roster. Chev, what is the next trade scenario that you selected for us tonight?
Yeah, so I'm going with the buy low trade target, running back or wide receiver. And I'm going with a guy that maybe you don't see him having the play right away. Maybe he's not a guy that gets you fantasy points right from the get-go, but it's going to be Tyjae Spears. He's behind King Henry, but we know King Henry is getting older. He's going to be 30 by the end of the year, and we've seen him miss time. And if he misses any time, I have no doubt in my mind that Tyjae Spears is going to come in, have a great workload, and he's going to put up fantasy football points. He's a guy that even if King Henry stays healthy, I still think he could be a productive third down back at the least. I think he could fit that position for them greatly. And he's so good with his contact balance. He has great hands. He can do everything in that offense that they need him to do. Even pass block, I think he's fine at. You know, we've seen in the preseason he has had flashes. He's a guy that I have talked about to a nauseum this offseason. I love Tyjae Spears. I don't care how many ACLs he has left. If he has 0, that means he can't tear it. That's my thought about that. Tyjae Spears.
I like that.
You like that? See,
You're not wrong.
Their
You're not
math
wrong.
adds up. Math adds up. If they're gone, they're gone. I love Tyjae Spears. I think he has the talent to be a great back in the NFL. And I think in fantasy, he still will be a productive back, especially if you're trading a 24 third-round pick for him. I even saw a trade Samaje Perine in a late third or fourth to get Tyjae Spears. Samaje Perine's a guy that's going to be behind Javonte Williams. I think the hype is a little crazy now that Javonte has shown that he's healthy and he's kind of ready to go for a prime time this upcoming year. I love Tyjae Spears. I think he's worth the buy at this point.
Yeah, I love this. And look, Tyjae Spears has already, he jumped over Hassan Haskins, who was a 4th-round draft pick last year. As a matter of fact, so is Jonathan Ward. Nate, 3rd on the Titans depth chart. And this team that runs a lot. I love this. Look at Tyjae Spears preseason, 13 carries, 89 yards, and 1 touchdown. So he's averaging 6.8 yards per carry.
He's good. He's a good football player, boys and girls.
He is good. And look, the ACLs, I don't care. I want this guy for his first contract. Then he's off my team.
Exactly.
That easy. Chev, I'm on board. Nate, what do you think?
I've been on and off of Tyjae Spears throughout this offseason. I was a really big fan of him before the draft. Just watching the film, I love Tyjae. Draft happened. He went to the Titans. I don't really like the scheme fit there. So I was down on him there. Then the news came out about his knees and having no ACLs. So I was pretty much out on Tyjae. But this preseason, he's looked good. He's looked healthy. He looks strong and quick. I still have worries about those knees. And, I understand, you want a guy for the first contract. But I don't know if he even gets through his first contract without some knee issues, if it's really that bad as it sounds. But, if you get 2 years of production out of him and you're trading a 30-round pick, we'll take that. It makes sense at this point. If Henry misses any time, he's the next man up. He should get some opportunity on 3rd down. So for a 3rd-round pick, I'm in on this. Anything more than that, I'm just staying away just because I'm a little more risk adverse. But I do love the talent of Tyjae Spears for sure.
All right, so let's go to the last one. I'm not supposed to give you a rebuilding trade target, but I'm going to anyway. So here is the guy that I'm going for. Call me crazy, disagree with me if you will, but listen, Jacoby Myers is cheap. I'm going for value. And look, you're rebuilding, you need value, okay? His DLF value is 47.4. So my trade is Jacoby Myers for a 2024 third. Okay, I understand that you need lots of picks when you're rebuilding, but look at hit rates. Jacoby Myers is 26 years old for a 3rd-round pick. I'll gladly do that. Here's another one. Jacoby Myers and a 24 4th. That value is 60.3. For Alec Pierce and Trey McBride, 65.1. I like Alec Pierce. I like Trey McBride. But I can find another Alec Pierce. I can find another Trey McBride. That is a matter of fact. Give me Jacoby Myers. He's only 26. I thought about Gabriel Davis here, to be honest with you, but I feel like people are still just really clinging on to his value. I get it. He did just come off a career year, 48 catches, 836 yards, and 7 touchdowns. But I think Jacoby Myers, he's a really good target on a team that, aside from Devontae Adams, it's kind of devoid of proven wide receiver talent. Hunter Renfrow, if memory serves me correct, was banged up last year. Let's look at what Jacoby Myers did the last couple of years. 2020, 59 catches for 729 yards, no touchdowns. In 2021, 83 catches for 866 yards and 2 touchdowns on 126 targets. In 2022, 67 for 804 and 6. So we could see he definitely gets targeted a lot. He's pretty good when he gets the ball in his hands too. So Nate looks like he wants to disagree with me. That's fine. Nate, go ahead.
I don't hate Jacoby Myers at all. I've always been a Jacoby Myers fan. In fact, I actually had a ton of him across my dynasty leagues after the 2020 season. I thought he was a good buy then. I don't like your second trade, Mike. I like your first trade for a 3rd-round pick. I think that's a good pick. I think for a rebuilding team, I think you pick up Myers, and I think you can flip him for probably a second mid-season because I think he's going to be a decent wide receiver 2 there for the Raiders. But I personally would rather have Alec Pierce and Trey McBride, who I think just offer more upside, maybe some more risk. Maybe they do bust out. Jacoby Myers is definitely a safer pick, but I think in a rebuilding scenario, I'd rather have Pierce and McBride, who I can take the upside on, see what happens. If they bust out, I didn't lose too much. Alec Pierce, we'll see what happens with him. He's more of a boom bust play just naturally with his position, running those go routes all the time. But Trey McBride getting a ton of usage in the preseason. I don't know what preseason usage really means, but McBride's out there all the time, and Ertz, I mean, he's coming back from injury, but the guy's like 34 years old, so we'll see.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how the splits go with Ertz and McBride. Maybe
remember, we were really high on McBride.
We were
just a year ago.
He does seem to be forgotten about, to be honest with you. I'm curious to see if they deploy some 2 tight end sets in Arizona, which, given their wide receiver,
they have to,
should,
considering their quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And Zach Ertz is a guy who's thrived in 2 tight end sets too. I mean, he was still very viable when he was playing with Dallas Goedert in Philadelphia, so he could do it again. Chev, agree, disagree on Jacoby Myers here?
Yeah, I think the best thing about Jacoby Myers, he's getting a wide receiver 1 to play next to now. He gets Devontae Adams to line up next to. He hasn't had that. He's been playing in New England. He's been the dog. And, this is only going to help his game, in my opinion. Will he see 67 catches, 804 yards? I don't know, maybe. But I just know he's going to have better-looking targets this upcoming year. Between Alec Pierce and Trey McBride, I get it. But, Josh Downs is going to be a guy in that offense who I think makes Alec Pierce almost forgettable, in my opinion. So I'm fine with the trade, but if you are rebuilding Pierce and McBride, you give yourself 2 shots instead of 1. I can see that, though.